In this world, you must be able to turn surprise to your advantage, or at the very least, meet it with durability and wit. So, the best possible virtue to disaster is durability. It can be small disasters in the case of our lives. Sometimes we might lose a loved one, fall out with a friend or a romantic partner. We may have to spend a lot of money for some reason. We may be hit with some kind of, not even fine, not even something we did wrong, but part of where you live might need to be renovated because there's termites eating out underneath your house or condo or apartment, something like that. Or perhaps you come upon something in your life that's probably the most surprising because it's closest to home. Something wrong with your code. Something wrong with the way you think or the way you live. And sometimes it jumps right out at you. And it was there all along, but it decides to jump right out at you. Your ability to meet surprise with durability will make you last in this world. So, let's think of some historical examples. We'll start big and go small, and probably go back and forth in between, as I do in my videos quite often. So, let's look at Stephen Hawking. He was a remarkable genius, and the perhaps prolonged, but at some point it became very obvious that he had a very, very bad illness that would make him more and more stationary, unable to move. This is a surprise that there's nothing you can do to treat it. There's nothing you can do to counteract it. There's only one thing that you can do when you're locked within your own head to greater and greater degrees. And that's figure out how to make your head a better place to live, if that's the only place you have to live. Stephen Hawking, he went through many big bouts of depression. There'd be some days where he didn't want to communicate at all, even through, even through how he communicated through like a computer voice, basically, kind of like a computer relay in a way. He'd go through periods of depression where he couldn't bathe himself, he couldn't feed himself, and the only reason he was taken care of so much and to such an extent was not because he was necessarily rich, but because he was very, very intelligent. He was very smart, and people valued that intelligence. And another surprise, I imagine, came when, those times when he realized that the reason that he was being taken care of so well, and the reason why there would be math students who would come and try to, on the regular, would be with him, taking care of him, trying to get him to communicate, because they're trying to figure out something. I imagine there were some people in his life that valued him for who he was, but what he could give to the world, I imagine, might have added to his depression in the sense that that was his value. Sometimes we can't fight the surprise. There's nothing to counteract it. And it reveals our value to the world in our time of need, who takes care of us and why. Those close to home surprises are some of the ones that hurt the most. And the sense of value, why somebody's caring for us, why somebody cares at all. But let's think of maybe a realization of code, a flaw in one's code. Realizing that the way one was thinking was incorrect all along, and there needs to be a revision. So let's look at somebody who was a very, very bad person. Let's look at Joseph Stalin. So this is going to be an interesting one, guys. So, video in general. Stalin, he made this pact with Hitler in the 1930s, that, mutual non-aggression pact. You give us, Nazis, you send us some supplies, we give this or that, and we don't attack each other even though we're very ideologically opposed. Now, Hitler and his party decided on Operation Barbarossa and decided to attack, regardless of this pact. For 3 days, as the Nazis and, the Wehrmacht, the German army, was invading Russia, the Soviet Union, Stalin hid and did not give orders to advance or surrender for 3 days. Basically, their only orders were to hold ground and not to move. This is very bad if anybody knows about military strategy, because then you can be surrounded, and ultimately many were pushed back. But his response is what I want to look at. He was so convinced that his deal with his idea of the devil, and many of ours as well, was a good one, because it put off war for as long as possible so that he could get ready for war. They weren't exactly ready. After Germany at that time and Russia divided Poland and between themselves, Stalin ordered the dismantling of a line of fortifications in Poland that could have held back the Nazis, but it was a natural fortification that the Poles already had, dismantling it because he was so sure that he was right about what he was doing. And there's a number of other reasons that it was so devastating when Operation Barbarossa happened, but his reaction to it was complete freeze. Didn't know what to do. He was in complete and utter shock and depression for 3 days. In our much smaller lives, sometimes we are shocked by circumstances. Sometimes things happen to such a degree that it overcomes seemingly our ability to handle it. Whether it's, and this is an immediate example, it's just something just happens, and then things keep on getting worse. The worst thing that you could do is freeze. Don't freeze in your life. Choose to make a decision. Sometimes making a decision is better than, sometimes making the wrong decision is better than making no decision at all. Now, he decided to respond with utmost ruthlessness after that. And this kind of explains something else that happens when we respond to surprise. Sometimes things in our lives happens and are so detrimental to our lives that it makes us colder, harder, and out for revenge against somebody else or perhaps the world. In our lives, that's a bad method to follow, because it numbs us to really our full range of emotion and possibility in our lives. When we get harder, more cold, then we allow the surprise of our circumstances to dictate who we are, rather than us dictating who we are. Rather than a development within, we allow circumstance to dictate who we are. And I mentioned changing of a code. So his code of aggression is what changed. Immediate, absolute aggression after that, which is understandable. This country was assaulted, but it changed his character as well. So sometimes, even in the world, sometimes we do have to push back quite a bit. But don't let that pushback necessarily change your code. He responded incorrectly to the code change. He decided that the code should be to become vastly more aggressive in any circumstance like this ever again, rather than just handling the immediate circumstance right then. This is a little bit flawed code change. Let's look at really just not being able to read the signs. So, Julius Caesar, after he seized power in Rome, he he declared himself dictator for life, in charge of everything. And he was so sure about himself that he did not look for all the clues in his life. Now, even in our tiny lives, there's a lot of clues that we can look to change for the better, or to become more, to grow. In this example, he was delivered no fewer than 5 different notes and warnings that he was going to be stabbed to death in the Roman Senate. He ignored some of these. He didn't even read some of these letters. And he refused to look at the signs around him, because there's a sureness, but also there was that blindness as well because of the sureness. But the signs were all there that he was going to be killed, but he was killed regardless. Right, always look for the signs. Even when things are going well, always be aware of your environment. Always be aware of the circumstances. And you can probably avoid the worst outcome of a surprise. Let's look at Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla. I think it's Nikola, yeah. He was a genius. Inventor. A little bit quirky on women. He idealized them. Viewed them as much more superior to man, but in a really weird way. He thought that women were just too good to work. It's an odd idealization, but regardless, he was quirky. But he was also a genius. So, in his life, he failed to see the capitalistic nature of others in his industry. I believe it was Thomas Edison that stole a lot of Nikola Tesla's work, because Nikola Tesla wouldn't patent it, but also he wouldn't get paid for it. This hampered his ability to develop new inventions. It also pushed him out of developing his own inventions once somebody else copyrighted them. The influence that he did not recognize and made him very susceptible to surprise and unable to cope afterwards, unable to be durable afterwards, was that he underestimated capitalism. He underestimated the forces at work in society. How can we understand this and implement in our own lives? So with Nikola Tesla, in your own life, you might want to understand the circumstances of society and how society will react to who you are, what you believe, what you do, and prepare for it. Perhaps you're not trying to win, but be prepared to be knowledgeable of society, how it operates, and be prepared to be regardless. Become as a stone. Now, no matter how hard the stone is, or how well it is placed, it will be eventually worn down by water. That's why, while you must be able to be durable and to bear what society throws at you, also be able to shift and move. Also be able to flow along with society when necessary, so that you survive in your own life, whether it be social encounters. Let's say you're around a bunch of really crappy people and you consider yourself a good person. Be able to ride the waves. Don't be broken by them or shattered by them. Be able to ride the waves as you coast along. Do not respond or react. Just simply be and let others be, so you may coast along these waves. All of these examples are people of incredible power or wit, but they all show how we can respond or be prepared for surprise in a way in our own lives. and just be prepared and durable. Durability and surprise are strange bedfellows, but they go quite well together. Whatever you encounter in your life, think. Don't necessarily become reactionary. Be well-founded in yourself, and if there's a flaw with it in your own mental structure, your ideology, your intellect, or some character flaw, be able to see it, not let it make you depressed, but be able to look for solutions. Do not take yourself too seriously. Do not view yourself as inherently unchangeable. Be willing to change. Make this a virtue within yourself. Be willing to change if you see something within yourself that needs to be changed. And be able to think before immediately reacting, but then react after having a plan in life. These are things that will help guide you through surprise. And sometimes you can turn surprise to your advantage. If you're durable, you can see opportunities, new opportunities that pop up where they weren't before. And these opportunities are as vast as they were before, even if it feels like our world is turned upside down. New opportunities, even with a new center of gravity. Use surprise in that way. Think of surprise in that way. And simply be and respond appropriately after contemplation. Anyway, this has been a video about surprise and how to deal with it within your own life through historical examples. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up down there. It really helps out the channel. Feel free to leave a comment. And all of you, have a wonderful day.